since then he has took it upon himself to address it in Parliament. And Mr Kelly successfully introduced a motion which was passed unanimously to take various action points and address the Coptic situation. So we thank Mr Kelly for being here today and for his passion on this issue.
Thank you, Monica. Bishop Daniel, my parliamentary colleagues, the Honourable Philip Ruddock, Chris Bowen, Laurie Ferguson, my many state parliamentary colleagues, including the Reverend Fred Nile and David Clark. My name is Craig Kelly and I'm the federal member of Hughes, and I'm proud to be part of Tony Abbott's united team in Canberra. A little over 18 months ago, I had the great privilege in our federal parliament to raise a parliamentary motion. Now, I know Peter Tadros has read this, but I would like to read it again, the words that were in our Hansard. That this House recognises that Coptic Christians in Egypt are suffering ongoing and increasing persecution. We condemn the recent attacks on Coptic Christians in Egypt. We express our sympathy for Coptic Christians who have been the victim of recent attacks. And we call on the government to firstly issue a public statement condemning the ongoing attacks against the Coptic Christian minority in Egypt, to make immediate representations to the United Nations to end persecution of Coptic Christian Egypt, and to strongly urge the Egyptian government to provide equal rights and protection for all Egyptian citizens, regardless of race or religion. That motion was unanimously passed in our House. However, since then, we have seen ongoing persecution, we have seen ongoing violence, and we have seen more deaths of Coptic Christians in Egypt. So I am here today to let you know, not only am I making a reaffirmation of that motion, but I'm saying to you that we will not be fatigued in our federal parliament. We will not let the Coptic cause be lost in the noise of our own political issues. We will continue to speak out loud, and we will redouble our voices to support the Coptic Christians in Egypt. For this is a critical issue, not only for Egypt, but for the entire Middle East. For today, our world stands at the crossroads. Now is not the time for silence or appeasement from the international community. For we know, as the Copts go, so may the entire Middle East. And I also like to recognise our Syrian friends, David, in the crowd here today. And we understand the persecution that you're also. So we call on the Egyptian government. They must protect freedom of speech. They must protect freedom of the press. And they must protect freedom of religious expression, especially for their minorities. For there are only two ways that Egypt can go. We have seen the current deterioration of their economy. We have seen their tourism sector collapse. We have seen, since the Muslim Brotherhood have come to power, a further 1 million Egyptians join the ranks of the unemployed. We've seen their budget in crisis, in deficit, and continuing ongoing budget deficits time after time with Egypt. So I thank you for coming here today. We say to the Egyptian government, there are two paths that you can go. You must choose the path of freedom. We also call on the world community, those currently called on to give aid to Egypt, the IMF, the USA, and other states like Qatar. If you are going to support the Egyptian government with additional emergency funds, you must do so as a condition of those funds that the Egyptian government gives religious freedom to their minorities. So again, I thank you for coming today. For we send a message not to Egypt, but to the world today, that we are not going to stand in silence while innocent Christians continue to be persecuted in Egypt. And I will use my voice in Parliament to continue to stand up and speak loudly to make sure the voice of the Coptic Christians of Egypt is heard and the persecution comes to an end. Thank you.